Did you know that you have control over your hormones? Take a breath into that. I know that we don't always live in a world where we're taught that we have control over our hormones and our chemicals in our body, but we are here to flip the script and really share some empowering tools for your health and your hormones from a holistic side. And guess what? This isn't just for ladies, it's also for men, because the truth is we are all in this together. I am so excited to be bringing in Daniel Schwartz to be talking about this powerful topic of hormones and health from a holistic side. Hi, Daniel. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Des. Thanks for having me.
Of course, it really means so much. And for those of you who are new to the world of Daniel, please drop a hello in the chat. And just so you know, Daniel Schwartz I met Daniel at a coffee kind of networking event, and instantly his compassion, his wisdom, and his real life experience gave him such credibility and such power. And as he spoke, it only got deeper and wider. He has a passion for fitness and nutrition that's really evolved into something beyond the traditional sense. His health and wellness journey started in his service in the Marine Corps, and he discovered acupuncture and Chinese medicine after an injury he sustained while serving and couldn't find relief through other modalities. Take a breath if you resonate with having some chronic pain or an injury that just can't seem to be relieved in any way. Take a breath if you relate, and drop "I relate" in the chat. Now, Daniel didn't just stop there. He actually, after he was able to find that relief, he went on to get his master's degree in traditional Chinese medicine. Daniel, what a resume.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I know I touched on it briefly. Your service in the Marine Corps, getting injured and really kind of getting to that place of stuck before you made that chapter into more of the holistic side of traditional Chinese medicine and puncture. But can you tell me a little bit more about what exactly got you to that turning point? What got you to that point of saying, I have to take a different approach?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you mentioned, I, was in the Marine Corps and I got introduced to health from the side of fitness and nutrition. And, that was my entry point. And then, dealing with some injuries, knee injury, back injury, and also some other issues like sleep issues, insomnia, and mental health stuff just related to my service. I started to look, outside myself to something that can help. And, my first option was the VA, Veterans Affairs, just because, I was in the service, connected with the VA, and I wasn't really getting the help that I was looking for. I felt like I was just getting like tossed around, and they're like, well, you can do these exercises, or we can give you these pills, or we can do surgery. And I wasn't interested in taking pills, and I wasn't interested in surgery. So I was kind of just like, all right, I guess I'll just deal with it. Definitely something I learned from the service, from the Marines, was just like, all right, suck it up, deal with it, and just this is how it is. And I met with one of my friends, and she was asking me about my knee injury, asking me about my back, and she was going to school for massage therapy at the time, and she's like, "Oh, this spot on your back where you're experiencing pain, like this is on the urinary bladder meridian." I'm like, "What does that even mean?" She's like, "You should try acupuncture." So I'm like, "All right, I'll try anything." I tried other things. I'm definitely open. And at the time, I was getting into yoga and essential oils and other holistic modalities. So I'm like, I've heard of acupuncture, but I've never tried it. I think it's worth a shot. So I go in and they're asking questions, feel my pulse, looking at my tongue, and I'm like, all right, what is this? But I went in open, and after the treatment, like I started to feel something. I was like, oh, there's like this different sensation that I've never felt before, and I actually feel really good. And I just kept on going back. I was fascinated. I kept on asking questions of like, what is that? What are you doing? What do you mean liver qi stagnation? What do you mean yin and yang? Like, tell me more. And I was fascinated with it. And eventually I started to see myself, see myself doing this. I knew I wanted to help people. And after getting out of the Marines, I was looking into being a personal trainer and a nutritionist. And that's what I was studying at the time. And, after, getting acupuncture, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to make this shift. So I transferred from my nutrition program to acupuncture, and here I am today.
What a story. Everyone who's watching this, whether you're watching this now with us live or in the future in the replay, drop some love in the chat for Daniel. There's so many points of your story that I'm just like writing down notes because it's a story that I think so many of us can relate to. And for those of you who are watching, we are going to be sharing some tips on really how to take back, the power of your hormones to really live that holistic, healthy life. But before we share those tips, I want to talk about this journey that you were on, because I think so many people are on it, but they don't realize, because, we live in this world of monotony, of taking the same thing, of repetition. And when you talked about wanting to get help and looking around and just feeling like you were getting tossed around, whether it was the mental health, the physical health, all of it, just feeling that lack of control. I know that that's something that a lot of clients that I work with have. It's something that I've experienced as well. And in that space of getting tossed around, there was still some part of you that knew you wanted and deserved more than the options that were being given to you, right?
Absolutely.
And can you tell me a little bit about how you kind of navigated that? Because I feel like so many people are like, I know this isn't what I want. I know that I deserve more, and now I'm feeling stuck. Now I'm feeling defeated, or I'm feeling helpless or in despair. Especially when it comes to chronic pain or things like this that we're feeling, and especially in a time of isolation. How did you get that drive or connect to that drive that was to stay open and to try new things?
Yeah, I would say, there's multiple pieces to that. I've always been curious. You can ask my older sisters when they basically raised me. They're like 11 and 9 years older than me. So I was always asking questions and just like so curious, wanting to learn more, wanting to understand the world and everything in it. So I feel like, from such an early age, I've been open to things. And also at the same time, there's kind of like this path that people are set on in the Western world where it's like the Western medical doctors are you know, they have all the power. They tell you what to do. They know everything about your body. You should listen to them. And, that's just it. But I knew that wasn't the case, especially starting to, learn about health, yes, from more of the Western side of like fitness and nutrition, but realizing that, they don't have all the answers. And, starting to look inward, starting to look at yoga and meditation and essential oils and other natural alternatives, like, oh, I can, instead of, taking this over the counter pill or whatever medication from the doctor, I can use this combination of these anti-inflammatory foods and essential oils and these stretches, and starting to get better. And I think because I had this like curiosity since I was a child, that getting out of the Marines and going on this path of soul searching and finding myself, that I was really looking for something else, looking for something that was outside of the outside of the box, outside of this like Western box of like doctors are in control of your health and you just need to listen to them. And I wasn't buying it. So yoga, essential oils, and then eventually, like finding acupuncture. And that's where like everything changed. And
Yeah.
it's like one of the things that I like to tell my patients, is that, you know, with acupuncture, like I'm not the healer. Your body is the healer. I'm just helping to remove the blocks. And, you know, that's one of the powers of acupuncture is it helps to, you know, remind your body that it can heal itself. And sometimes there's blocks with stress and, you know, endocrine disruptors or diet, lifestyle, alcohol, lack of sleep, smoking, all these different
Yeah.
things, chemicals, toxins, that prevent our body from doing what it's supposed to. I think stress is one of the biggest ones because our body has this natural mechanism of healing itself. You know, you cut your arm and then it immediately starts to, you know, clot, can create a scab, and then eventually you don't have to do anything. There's no, you know, conscious activity. I mean, other than of cleaning the wound, and maybe you put some Neosporin or whatever it is on it, but your body knows what to do. And when it comes to stress, like we're in this like fight or flight state, in which I was in all the time from the Marines, like constantly, um, which is also another huge shift for me, where I finally was able to relax. And when our bodies are able to get into that state of relaxation, it's also a state of healing. It's also a state of growth. So taking you out of fight or flight into relaxation, you know, that's where healing begins.
Exactly. You know, and it's in that place of feeling safe. And in that place of feeling safe, we can exhale, we can take a breath. We don't have to be in that state of chronic tension, that hyper awareness, hyper vigilance, that the body's like, okay. You know, that's why there's so much power when we're sleeping, because we're in that mode of rest. You know, our conscious mind isn't running wild with what ifs and shoulds. And what I loved about your resilience, you staying committed to your path, even if you didn't know what it was, were these three things that really seemed to come up. And that's your curiosity that allowed you to stay open. So, you know, getting curious, asking questions, because it's not just the openness of saying yes to anything, I'll try it all. It was, no, I'm going to get curious first. I'm going to ask questions. I want to understand the why, and I want to understand my why. And then I want to open myself up to some experiences. And then I'm going to take action, consistent action, because, you know, as I tell my clients this all the time, awareness is a beautiful thing, but without action, you're just going to end up with a lot of information, feeling stuck, overwhelmed, and probably in decision analysis or paralysis. And in those three things, it sounds like it can really be such a pivoting moment for someone to take their health back, to start exploring maybe some holistic approaches, because they know that the path that they're on, they didn't put themselves there. And I love that you touched on the body, because the body is a beautiful, detailed map of the subconscious mind. You're right. It holds everything. It stores our trauma. It stores our stress. You know, even if we don't remember that one time a teacher said something really mean to us in fifth grade, our body does. And I love the looking at acupuncture as really being able to help remove some of these blocks to give the power back to the body. And that's so powerful, because I think when a lot of people think of acupuncture, you know, for those watching this, let me know in the chat, when you think of acupuncture, what do you think of? You know, because I think people might think of, you know, movies where people putting needles and maybe like moving your body around. And so I love that you're like, hey, this is what it is. It's giving your body the power back to heal. And I'm helping remove some of the blocks. Now, in the very beginning, when you were talking about your story, you talked a little bit about, you know, the meridian and the yin yang and chi. And some people might not be like, what is this man saying? So can you tell me just briefly, you know, tell the audience a little bit about the energy or the harmony of yin yang, of acupuncture, and how it can relate to blocks? And yeah, just kind of maybe starting there.
Yeah. So, you know, when I mentioned the fight or flight and the, you know, state of rest and healing, that's a perfect representation of what yin and yang is. I think most people know what the yin yang symbol is. It's the circle with the white half and the black half, and there's a black dot in the white spot and a white dot in the black spot. And that's where traditional Chinese medicine, traditional East Asian medicine stems from, is that symbol, which actually comes from Taoism. But everything is yin and yang. Traditional Chinese medicine came from observing nature and how things work. So just some examples of what yin and yang is. So the sun is yang, it's like pure yang energy. And then the earth in relation is more yin. We just got into summer. We had the summer solstice, and in San Diego, the sun's coming out and it's warmer. We had some June gloom going on. But summertime is pure yang. Winter, pure yin. They're opposites. Light, dark, hot, cold. The sympathetic fight or flight, that's a more of a yang state. And then the parasympathetic, rest and digest, or rest and healing, that's a more yin state where we go inward. And there's basically, I can go on forever. Men are more yang in nature, women are more yin in nature. There is this level of duality in just about anything. And sometimes, like, summer in San Diego it's pretty yang, but if we go into the desert where it's like 120 degrees in the summer, that's way more yang. And then if we have winter in San Diego, I've lived here for, I've acclimated to the weather here, and, I'll put on a sweater and some pants. But I lived in Chicago and New York City, both 3 years. And that winter, like, that's way more yin, way colder, way more intense. Whereas here it's like, oh, it's below 60s and I'm cold.
And what I love these examples, because they really bring in the yin and yang from, like, our day to day in these metaphorical things that we can all understand. And I love that you touched as well of the extremes, the different spectrums that come with the yin and that come with the yang, and also how it can relate to men and women, or the masculine and the feminine. And so I imagine that in the work that you do, and I know that, again, a big part of it is not just the acupuncture, but really getting people to that deeper understanding of hormonal health, how it might relate to fertility, how it might relate to just mental health, really how it impacts everything, because our hormones are going to play a really big part in our life, whether we realize it or not. And when it comes to working with men and women in the space of hormones, in the space of hormonal understanding and holistic health, do you notice that maybe, do they share like struggles or challenges? Do you notice that these, men and women tend to have different hormonal struggles? And as a result, what's a tip that you would like to share with that community?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, whether, my patient is coming in for hormone balance or pain, like, hormones are part of the picture. It's always part of the picture. They are the things that, like, really run our body and tell them what to do. And it's like, this hormone will tell this tissue to do this thing. But so, like, everything is related to hormones. So I'll just start with that. And in terms of tips, one of the things that I like to do is, really empower my patients into, like, these are the things that you can do to support your hormone health, versus, hey, take this injection, hey, take this pill, which that might be required. But I want to exhaust everything else first before we get into, I would say, more intense or harsh or extreme interventions. So, when it comes to hormone health, most of the times people are thinking of, like, sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, stuff like that. But, there's cortisol, the stress hormone. We have all of these thyroid hormone, which is, like, such a huge aspect of our energy. And there's, like, really, I would say, like, a epidemic of hormone issues, especially relating to like thyroid health. But anyway, insulin, digestion, and taking in those nutrients, the sugar into our bloodstream. But anyway, so in terms of what people can start doing today, I like to break things into categories. So I actually have this like fertility hormone program that I run clients through that goes over 5 different areas. So first we start with nutrition. Like nutrition, that's the foundation. So creating, eating, getting the right nutrients to have the building blocks so your body can create those hormones that it that needs. And one of the big things is actually cholesterol. There has been this demonization of cholesterol, and it's going to raise your blood cholesterol and give you a heart attack. And there's definitely a genetic mutation that can cause that, or having too much dietary cholesterol will influence, but that's more rare. So having the adequate vitamins, minerals, micronutrients, macronutrients to be able to create those hormones is key. So setting the foundation with nutrition. And in terms of like tips, I can go really off into the deep end. I don't really want to do that because I know we don't have time for that. But just like eating real food. Eating real food is like the starting place. If you can make your own meals, like even better. But there are other times when work and stress and life and whatever it is, but ideally real food that you can actually read the ingredients, whereas you get a box and there's 50 ingredients and it has all these crazy science names that is like, what is this?
Yeah, you can't pronounce any of them. You don't
exactly.
And that was a big thing. I was living abroad for 7 years and coming back to the US, really seeing the difference in nutrition and nutritional value and everything that goes into that. And so I think that first, even just that tip alone, I know that you've got this program that's built on the 5 building blocks of the hormones, but just the reminder that what we put into our bodies matters, and that our hormones are kind of like orchestrating our body. They're talking to our tissues, they're putting us in that space of reflection. Also, just so we do have someone who's watching us live named Elise, and I think that she just wanted to say hello and that she's a big fan.
Hey, Elise.
So that first tip of just nutrition and the connection is it's just a great thing for us to be mindful of. And for those of you who are watching, if you're like, oh yeah, nutrition, I ask, if you know nutrition, are you doing it?
Great. I'm going to close the window behind me because there's like noise. Give me 1 second.
No worries.
All right. So in terms of, after nutrition, which is the foundation, that's the starting place. Then the next thing is sleep. Sleep is so important, especially when we're talking about hormone health, but specifically sex hormones, because we create, we build, we make most of our sex hormones while we're sleeping. So getting your sleep under control and making sure you're getting an adequate 6 to 8 hours of sleep. And typically, women need more sleep than men. And
that's my husband.
Yeah. But everyone, there's a nice sweet spot, 6 to 8 hours, ideally, of adequate sleep and restful sleep. So I go into that, and then.
And for those who are watching, I just really be curious, please let us know in the chat, how many hours of sleep on average do you get? And do you know what's your magic number? No judgment for either or any of these answers, but rather just a space for reflection. Because again, when we get curious and we take action, things really start to change. So I just invite you to drop that into the chat. Sorry, Daniel.
No, of course, yeah. Absolutely. So, those two are like really the big heavy hitters. They set the foundation of that, basically like the hormone optimization pyramid. And then the next level of that pyramid is lifestyle. And that includes everything. So one of the things that I like to mention is like, just as, you know, it is important that we know that what we're putting into our body when it comes to food and nutrition, it's the same with what we're putting on our body, around our bodies, perfume, fragrances, harsh chemicals and cleaners, and or just like the things that you do when you take a shower or lotion or whatever it is. So really helping to create a hormone friendly environment inside and out. So, you know, looking at, you know, what are the things inside my house? What are the things that I'm, you know, exposing myself to? And a lot of times people think of like toxins and chemicals. They're like, oh, alcohol and like cigarette smoke, but it's so much more than that. When we're talking about hormones, um, there's a few words that I like to, you know, talk about. We have um, the endocrine system, which is what controls our hormones. And then we have endocrine disruptors. And those endocrine disruptors can be found in our food, and they can also be found in our personal care products. And one big one in particular are estrogens. So we have normal estrogen that both men and women have. And then we have phytoestrogens, which are estrogens from plants and food. Which the big one is soy, where soy can have a lot of estrogen in it that can disrupt the balance, the hormone balance of testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. And then we have xenoestrogens. Xenoestrogens are those that are from man-made chemicals, like parabens and phthalates and all of these BPA, all these crazy chemical sounding names. Those are things that really disrupt hormones in both men and women. So really cleaning up that environment so we have more control of our hormone health.
Yeah. Everyone, drop a "we love Daniel" in the chat, because I know that we were going to be sharing some of these tips on really how to take back that power of hormone health, you know, both for men and women. And this foundation is so powerful. And I am amazed and inspired and grateful at the depth that you're going into it, where it's not just like, yeah, it's lifestyle, you know, these are the different things. It's like, no, let's take a pause, because again, that information can really be life-changing for a lot of people, you know. And again, for anybody who's like, oh my gosh, this man is a genius, he knows so much, I want to work with him, I really want to take the opportunity to take back that power and control in my body and with my hormone health, with pain, whatever it is, because again, it's all interconnected. There's a link in this bio for Daniel's website. Please check it out, and just make sure that, I just want you to know that there's opportunities to take more action than just watching this video with Daniel. If you're just like, this is too hot, just know that there is a link up there for you to follow and learn more about him and contact him directly as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, I'm an acupuncturist and herbalist, and you know, in North County, San Diego. But I do also offer online services as well in terms of like supporting hormone health. That next rung in the pyramid, next level in the pyramid. So we start off with nutrition. That's the foundation. Next, we have sleep. After that, we have lifestyle. And honestly, nutrition and sleep are part of lifestyle, but like this is more of the other factors in lifestyle: personal care products, cleaning products, so on and so forth. And then after that, we have exercise. Exercise is so important when it comes to hormone health. But it's not like there's no one size fits all. It's actually part of the reason why I transitioned from my nutrition and exercise science program into traditional Chinese medicine, because there is this belief that there's a one size fits all, everyone needs to do this thing and eat this cookie cutter nutrition. Like, no, it's about finding like what works best for you. And you know, my exercise regimen is very different than yours and you know everyone else. So it's not about like, oh, you must follow, these workouts and blah, blah, blah. It's more of like, what does your body need? And, whichever form it is, we need movement in some way. For some people, it's simply just walking. For other people, they're getting in the gym. Other people, it's, CrossFit. Um, but it's about, moving your body and, finding what works best for you. And then the very well, I guess I'll talk a little bit more about, in the exercise sense. Is like this one is for both men and women, but kind of like more leaning towards men. Like when we're talking about like testosterone, and a lot of people might think that like, oh, testosterone is only for men, but like no, we both have testosterone, we both have estrogen, and having a healthy balance is extremely important. And resistance training, like lifting weights, like moving heavy objects, is extremely important when it comes to testosterone health. And I'll also say when it comes to women, especially women of reproductive age that are, that have a menstrual cycle, honoring that and not like, oh, well, Daniel said that I need to move my body and lift heavy weights, but I'm currently on my period. It's like, no, like I'm a full proponent in linking your exercise routine with your cycle. And I've heard from my girlfriend and other women in my life that they're taught that like, oh, your hormones are most similar to a man during your menses. You should get out and do high intensity interval training. But like you're literally bleeding. It's a time for rest. So, I also like to talk about, cycle tracking and linking where you're at in your cycle with, what you're doing for exercise. So it's like, during your bleed, it's soft, gentle movement like yoga and walking. And then like, post that and around ovulation, it's like, okay, now it's time to like, you can amp it up a little bit more because you have more energy. But anyway, exercise is super important.
I want to say thank you for speaking to that myth because, your girlfriend and the women in your life, many of us really grew up with that narrative. And you're right, it's really difficult. And, it reminds me of when you were talking about your story where it's like, you just got to push through it, just deal with it, and so thank you for just serving as that reminder where it's like also coming back to the difference, the yin yang. Seasons of winter being for rest. And so I love that you talk about cycle tracking and how your body is, again, just coming back to that wisdom and knowing your body enough to know what's right. So you can maybe start to challenge some of the paths that we've all been told that we're meant to be on. So I just want to say special shout out to Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you. But yeah, super important. And when it comes to all of these things is honoring your body. Like I'm not the master of anyone's bodies other than my own. And, likewise, like you are the master of your own body. If, the advice, guidance, support doesn't resonate with your body, then that's okay. And when it comes to exercise, it's like checking in and like, actually what I need today is to rest and, that's good. But yeah, same thing with like diet and all these other things. And then the last part of the pyramid, the very tippy top of the pyramid, I like to call as like the last 5%. And that's supplementation. And the reason why I talk about that last is because that's the last thing. They're meant to supplement everything else. Like that's in the name. It's to supplement an already healthy diet, an already healthy lifestyle, and all these things. But sometimes it's helpful to get that extra little push or nudge and like support, especially if like, well, I can't really sleep because I'm deficient in this vitamin or whatever it is, or I need support with my digestion and maybe getting some digestive enzymes, whatever it is.
And what I love about that too is I feel like that also speaks volumes to having someone to support them on their hormone health journey. Having someone, like yourself that could be like, hey, I've done these 4 things. Now that I've really started to take action in these different foundational pieces of the pyramid, I want to start looking towards supplements. I want to start maybe figuring out which supplements are right for me. And I feel like it's really probably easy to go down the rabbit hole of supplements, especially in the world that we live in. And having someone like you who could really, hold that hand or break down holistic supplements versus, again, coming back to some of these ones that are maybe more like chemically kind of man-made and how that can impact our body, or taking the wrong supplements for hormones or things that we need that we actually don't need. So I feel like in this last 5%, it seems like it'd probably be really powerful to be speaking with a professional around what supplements you really deserve.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the reason why I have it at the end, and there's also this, I'll say, like, speak from my personal experience, being in the Marines and then going to like GNC and then all these crazy workout supplements and like testosterone X ultra. And it's like, oh, what is this? But anyway, it's like, even with supplementation, it's, what are the nutrients and micronutrients that you're needing versus taking this like giant multivitamin or giant supplement where it has everything in, but it's like, does your body really need that? And that's where testing is helpful. And I partner with one company that does dried urine analysis testing for specifically for hormones. And that, paints a picture of like, what does like your body need in regards to, all of these things and this hormone optimization pyramid, but also like supplements. Like, are there supplements that can support you in that? Or is it more of just like lifestyle things that you can do on a day-to-day versus, buying a supplement for it?
I don't know what to say. I'm speechless because, again, the value that you have given the community in such a short period of time is astounding. From the very beginning, where you're sharing your story and really just talking about being able to take action in your own life by staying curious, staying open, and again, taking action to really realize that the path that you are on, the path that so many of us are on, we weren't put there. We didn't go there by choice. That at some point in our lives, something happens to our body, to our mindset, to, our energy, that is that longing for more, feeling like we're getting tossed around in the system and wanting to step out of it. And that can be really scary and really overwhelming. But in that place of curiosity, there's so much safety and freedom and expansion that can happen. From that powerful beginning to you walking us through your hormone health like pyramid, from the foundation of, making sure that we're touching on nutrition all the way up to that last 5% of getting deeper, unique support and health around supplements and hormones has been amazing. And I can only imagine how life-changing, life-opening this interview can be for many people, let alone knowing that there's so many other resources and services that people can tap into to reclaim their hormone health, both men and women. Because again, we all have hormones and we're all in this together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Of course. And, Daniel, before we close this interview, are there any final thoughts, words of wisdom, golden nuggets, jokes? The floor is yours. If there is just kind of anything that is feeling called to come through at the end of this interview.
Yeah, I would like to say or point out that, June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's something that is really important to me, to someone that has struggled with mental health, and, know personally that men are kind of told to just suck it up or suffer in silence. And, that's not the case. And it's definitely important for both men and women in regards to mental health. But, definitely towards men, that like it is okay to receive help. It does not make you weaker, or really, it makes you stronger. It really does. And that's something that, I've had to learn. I'm still learning on my journey. Yeah, I wanted to point that out, whether it's, mental health, whether it's hormone health, whether it's just like experiencing pain, like you don't have to just deal with it. There are several options. There are several ways to support, you. And yeah, so
Yeah.
okay to seek help.
And for everyone who's like, when I met Daniel, we jumped on and I said, hey, I'd love to interview you as soon as possible because we are both really driven by mental health. That was a big thing that actually connected us when we first met, knowing the struggle of mental health and really trying to break the stigma and flip the script around it, because we shouldn't have to just deal with it. That's not the life that we were meant to have. And Daniel's turnaround time was like, yep, let's do this. And so I just want to speak to that comment of June being Men's Mental Health Month, because there's so many people, there's so many services and resources that are available that are trying to take more of a stand for the life that you deserve. A life free from having to just deal with it, a life free from getting tossed around and being whatever journey you're on. It's not your fault, no judgment. So much so that these two strangers met, and within like 2 weeks, they're like, let's put this together because we're here for you. And again, you can contact Daniel. You can reach out to him directly. There's a website. I'm going to drop it in the comments as well. Just flood you with Daniel for those of you who'd like more support. And for those of you who are new to me, I'm Des, and I'm an embodiment coach. And I help women overcome emotional triggers so they can really silence their inner critic and live a life of safety, stability, and deep inner trust. And I'm so grateful, Daniel, to have you in here to help broaden and blur the edges of tradition. So that way it doesn't feel as scary when we decide to cross onto that other path. Again, both men and women, because we're all in this journey together. Thank you so much, Daniel. Truly, this has been such a treat and a gift. If you're like, oh, I want some more of this, what would you like Daniel to talk on next? Because I have a feeling that this will be the beginning of something very expansive for the community. Thank you so much, Daniel, for joining me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Des.
Bye, everybody.